Who do you think allows us to eat every day? Don't you know that if I wasn't working tirelessly, you wouldn't even be able to eat decently? If you don't work properly and keep on slacking off, maybe there won't be food for you tomorrow, you know? My husband hinted at a divorce paper. Overwhelmed by his behavior, he forced me to fill out the divorce paper. My husband didn't listen to what I said. He didn't respect my feelings. He never faced me. My heart wasn't strong enough to continue being his wife. My name is Emily. I'm a housewife in my 40s. I live with my husband. We got married after an office romance and initially got along well, but recent years have been filled with endless arguments. After our wedding, upon my mother-in-law's advice, I quit my job. She held conservative views and seemed unsatisfied with me not settling immediately as a housewife. Even though she's my in-law, she became my family. Considering the good pay at my husband's job, I decided to resign and let him be the sole earner. From then on, my days were spent as a dedicated housewife. I always hoped to ensure a comfortable life for my husband and harmony in our marriage. I thought life might be somewhat easier without a job, but it wasn't. Household tasks had to be perfect, and meals required careful planning for nutritional balance for our health. However, there were times when I didn't have enough time or was too tired to handle everything, yet he wouldn't compromise. He'd say, "I allowed you to be a full-time housewife and expected me to manage everything perfectly." Our relationship started to escalate after that. Being a housewife was much harder and challenging than I had initially thought. The atmosphere between us became tense and conversations between us decreased. Even though I'm a stay-at-home wife, I can't even comfort my husband properly. My husband laughed at me when I was expected to care for him when he came home tired. But when I was tired from household chores, he didn't offer encouragement. He belittled me instead. By this time, the relationship between us was no longer equal. The quality of the food has declined. "Do better. If I get sick, it'll be your fault. You haven't cleaned at all. Don't you see this dust? What will you do if I develop a dust allergy? Because you didn't do your job properly, I had to go to work wearing a wrinkled shirt today. This is problematic. You're a housewife, you should do better." I was utterly exhausted, but the complaints from my husband didn't cease. I wanted to shout, "Stop," and cover my ears, but doing so might anger him even more. Every time my husband spoke to me, I could only reply with, "I'm sorry, I'll do better next time," which made me feel even more pitiful. Perhaps due to our strained relationship, my husband started coming home less frequently. He would be out drinking until late and return home completely drunk. I was getting concerned if I could keep on supporting him like that. But if I left him at the front door, it might enrage him. After years of being belittled by my husband, his shouting had become the scariest thing for me. Even if he came home late at night, I stayed up and had to wait for him. Despite my best efforts, when he came home, he would only boss me around, never offering a word of appreciation. I felt like I was being treated merely as a convenient housekeeper, and grew increasingly distressed. Why was he so hard on me? Then I had a hunch. It was my mother-in-law. My mother-in-law was a stern woman who managed household chores and child-rearing perfectly. Having been pampered by such a mother, my husband had ingrained beliefs that whatever I did, he would say, "My mother did it right," or "My mother would have done it better." When I couldn't live up to his standards, he'd tell me to learn from my mother. To make matters worse, he would belittle me, saying, "Even though you're a woman like my mother, why can't you do things right?" The feeling I had towards my husband, who held the unbelievable notion that because I'm a woman I should be perfect at household chores, was a mix of astonishment and anger. The idea that women are inherently good at housework is utterly absurd. I, for one, am not particularly skilled at household chores, whereas my mother-in-law is quite good at them. Yet my husband attributes everything to my gender and demands perfection from me. Naturally, I couldn't remain silent when subjected to such terrible behavior over and over. I'm not mature enough to suppress my anger towards him indefinitely. I often responded to his words, leading to frequent arguments between us. "Why can't you do things the way I want? A woman should always be in line with my wishes. Enough is enough. I'm not a machine born to serve your requests." I have my own feelings, and there are things I can't do. You're a housewife. It's only natural that you do everything perfectly. Why are you such a failure? That day's argument escalated significantly, possibly due to the built-up tensions between us. It felt endless, with both of us hurling insults and complaints at each other. Neither of us had any intention of backing down. As we continued to clash, revealing our true feelings, it was my husband who finally reached his breaking point. He pulled out a sheet of paper from the cupboard. Upon closer inspection, I realized it was a divorce form. With a smirk, he showed it to me. Who do you think is providing for you? If I didn't work hard, you wouldn't even get to eat properly. Do you get it? If you don't start working hard, you might not even have food for tomorrow. How's that? Faced with his extreme threat, I was livid. It was too much for him to dangle the prospect of divorce, just because I wasn't bending to his every request. I'm a human being with my own thoughts and feelings. If I'm not even allowed to express them, then what's the purpose of my existence? I was left speechless by my husband's unbelievable behavior. While I was definitely angry, I also felt apprehensive about the implications of a divorce and questioned whether I had done something terribly wrong to deserve this. My husband, seemingly indifferent to my state, pressed me to fill out the divorce form. It appeared he had no immediate plans to submit it, but he wanted it ready so he could divorce me without question if I ever defied him again in the future. Once I had reluctantly finished filling out the form, my husband did the same. The divorce paper, with our signatures, starkly highlighted the reality that we could be divorced at any time. Had I really messed up so badly to deserve this? Is it impermissible for me, a housewife, to admit my limitations or to get upset when blamed for them? If I had known it would come to this, I would have never left my job, even against my mother-in-law's wishes. If I knew this hell awaited me, I wouldn't have married my husband. I regretted my choices. How wonderful it would have been if I had been someone more assertive, clearly expressing what I truly wanted. How much better it would have been if I could have communicated better with my husband. How amazing it would have been if I were someone who stood her ground, not yielding to the whims of a man like my husband. I felt that I had reached my limit in continuing to live with him as a married couple. The next day, while I was leisurely doing household chores after returning from shopping, my husband came home. Apparently, he had come straight home without stopping for drinks. As soon as he arrived, he spoke to me with a smug grin on his face. "The divorce papers are already filled out, so we can get divorced anytime, huh? Did that make you reflect a bit? From now on, make sure you're perfect with the household chores. Okay?" He said this without considering my feelings at all. However, I had an ace up my sleeve. "What are you talking about?" "I'm single now." "What?" My husband was stunned, unable to grasp the reality of my words. I decided to fill him in on the day's events. While I was out shopping, I submitted the divorce form. "You're so clueless. Once it's filled out, even with your details, it can be submitted anytime. Thanks to you, I was able to get divorced immediately. Being free from someone like you feels like a dream." Unable to comprehend the situation, my husband stood there with his mouth agape in disbelief. Seeing that the divorce papers were indeed missing from the cabinet, my husband's face turned bright red as he shouted at me in frustration. "What the hell are you thinking? If we get divorced, you'll be the one in trouble. Even then, why did you submit the divorce papers? Don't you realize how difficult it will be for you, a housewife, if we divorce? I am an adult too. I understand the consequences of submitting divorce papers. Still, I wanted to divorce you, and I made that decision on my own. You'll be the one in trouble without my income. Are you okay with not being able to live comfortably?" "I'll figure something out on my own. I'll be fine." No matter how much my husband blamed me, I no longer felt hurt or bothered. Instead, I felt free. I no longer have to endure being compared to his mother or being told that my household chores aren't perfect because I'm just a housewife. I can't deal with you anymore. If you're gonna act so arrogant, leave right now. As he saw no signs of remorse in me, my husband seemed to lose his patience and told me to leave. The old me might have been scared of those words, but now it felt like it was something I had been waiting for. I took the bags I had packed during the day and returned to my parents' home. From then on, every day was busy, albeit stress-free. First, I went to consult a lawyer who specialized in marital issues, introduced to me by my friend. We discussed compensation and asset distribution. It seems my husband also hired a lawyer, indicating a long legal battle ahead. And there was one more thing I had to do, and that was to sell the house. The house where my husband and I lived was actually handed down to me by my father, with a deed in my name. My father had transferred it to ensure we had a stable life together. However, given the circumstances in the divorce, I saw no reason to keep that house. After confirming with my father and getting his approval, I decided to sell it. Knowing my husband's work schedule, I arranged for a real estate agent to appraise the house during that time. It turned out that the house could sell for a much higher price than I had anticipated. A few days later, I moved out my belongings and the process of listing the house for sale began. Once I had taken care of all my responsibilities, I was just waiting for various communications. Then a few days later my smartphone rang loudly. Checking from who it was, I saw that it was from my husband. Technically, since our divorce was finalized and I had hired a lawyer, I didn't need to answer. But curiosity about how he was doing got the better of me and I decided to pick up. "Hello, how have you been?" "How have I been? That's not the point. I can't live in the house anymore. What are you gonna do about it?" "Have you forgotten? That house was handed down to me by my father. If I'm not living in it, I can sell it. Right? That's not right at all. Where am I supposed to live? Without a house, I can't do anything." He seemed to be overwhelmed with anger and frustration. Over the phone, he yelled at me, demanding, "Return everything to the way it was right now." But now I felt no obligation to obey him. We were no longer a husband and wife, but mere strangers. All of this was a consequence of his own actions. If only he had respected my wishes and worked on our relationship, we wouldn't be in this situation. If only he had treated me as an individual and not expected me to be this perfect wife, I wouldn't have had to suffer like this. If he had considered my feelings more, we wouldn't be here now. If he had listened to me and accepted that I couldn't be perfect as a wife and strive together as a couple, it would have all been different. I get it. Please, just put everything back the way it was. But let's remarry and work together from here on out. What are you saying now? There's no way I'm getting back with you. I'm gonna live my life, a happy life, without any interference from someone like you. So please don't contact me ever again. With that, I hung up the phone. He kept calling me incessantly, but I ignored all his calls. I deleted his contact and, to be safe, informed my lawyer about his attempts to reach out. From now on, even if my husband tries to contact me, I probably won't respond. Thus, my unpleasant life with my ex-husband has come to an end. The thought that I'll never meet or speak with him again is truly liberating. My friend told me that after all this, my ex-husband lost his home and sought help from his parents. When my ex-mother-in-law finally learned of what he had done to me, she reprimanded him severely. While she certainly had strong beliefs, she was also someone who valued fairness and justice. Also, she was someone who could respect others. To my ex-mother-in-law, my ex-husband, who had shown no respect and treated his wife however he pleased, was simply inexcusable. After being expelled from his family home by his own mother, I have no idea where my now lonely ex-husband ended up. However, I heard a rumor that he quit the job he used to be so dedicated to. On the other hand, after that incident, I took some time to recuperate at my parents' home and eventually started working again after several years. There was a gap in my career since I had been a full-time housewife for a while, but I quickly adapted to the working environment and am now working diligently. I feel much more at ease in this setting than when I was forced to do housework at home. I want to put a lid on those unpleasant memories with my ex-husband and move forward to a happier life.